Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes, and I haven't been raped yet, but I did spend the last 4 days looking at this face. Hi, I'm Diana Davison. Now, some people in my audience might have recognized that face as Alice Schwarzer, the Dr. Evil of feminism. She's mostly known for a debate, well, we'll call it a debate, that she had with a woman named Esther Vilar, who wrote a book called The Manipulated Man. And the debate was a bit of propaganda. They basically took two really strong-willed women and they sat them across from each other with no moderator, and they intended to see a mud fight, which is essentially what they got. Now, a book came out called, or is trying to come out, called Tango with Alice. And this is a tell-all story from a former lover of hers, lesbian lover, that she had in, I think it was 1972. And Schwarzer has tried to block this book. And I'm going to get into why that's really funny as well. It does tie into the footage from the debate she had with Vilar. So let's start with a discussion of who is Alice Schwarzer today. She had a conflict, which was highly publicized, with the Minister of Families in Germany, and The Guardian wrote about it here. Germany's leading feminist campaigner and its Minister for Families, Pensioners, and Women have locked horns over the role of feminism in relationships and the workplace, unsparingly attacking each other's views in a row that has escalated into a nationwide debate. Alice Schwarzer, considered the country's foremost women's rights campaigner, labeled, I'm not going to say this wrong, Kristina Schröder, hopeless and incompetent after Schröder said she thought some of her views were wrong. Schröder, 33, of the Christian Democratic Union, was recruited by Angela Merkel and became the youngest woman ever in a German cabinet. She told Der Spiegel, probably said that wrong, that she could not agree with certain views expressed by Schwarzer, including that heterosexual sex was hardly possible without the subjugation of women. Schröder said, "It's absurd to define something that is vital to the survival of humanity as subjugation." She said she was unconvinced by the feminist argument that rejecting heterosexual relationships in favor of homosexuality was a solution to the disadvantage to women. Now, calling the Minister of Families incompetent, as I said, may well be true, but it doesn't actually help her argument that all heterosexual sex is, kind of like Andrea Dworkin claimed, rapey. And so that idea still stands there as absurd. But basically, Schwarzer's response is,
I've been a frickin' evil doctor for 30 frickin' years, okay? Cut me some frickin' slack.
Now, that is another problem that Schwarzer is facing with the current German feminists, who see her as kind of a bit of an embarrassment. And, you know, I compared her to Andrea Dworkin, who I think the current feminists are rather happy is dead. So they can look at her as a dinosaur of the past, and because she's dead, they can now say her ideas kind of faded with her. Schwarzer is still alive, and starting to look a little bit more like Dworkin in many ways. So Schwarzer's been criticized many times by other feminists. There's a book called Alice in No Man's Land, talking about the absurdity of the type of world that Schwarzer is kind of presenting. And another one, Alice Schwarzer, A Critical Biography. She hasn't too much cared about these criticisms. What she does care about is this book, Tango with Alice. So why do people not like Alice Schwarzer? Even the feminists don't like Alice Schwarzer. She's kind of the one you love to hate. I'm going to go into the footage now of her debate with Vilar, not to talk about the ideas that Vilar represented, which is that women are not oppressed and that they actually control men. I'm going to just look at this in terms of the tactics that she used to try and bully her opponent with. And these are things that will not die with her or Dworkin or whatever. These are just common staples of feminist argument. So here we go.
Wir können, glaube ich, anfangen, Frau Vilar.
Ja?
Darf ich Sie gleich mal mit einer Frage überfallen, die ich mir überlegt habe?
Ja, bitte.
Und zwar ist mir aufgefallen, dass auch Freundinnen so sagen, dass es einige Leute gibt, die glauben, das, was sie geschrieben hätten, das sei also nicht etwa pure Dummheit oder so, sondern das sei eine Satire. Und in Wirklichkeit seien sie also eine heimliche Feministin, die sich nichts inniger wünscht, als dass die Frauen sehr revoltiert auf ihre Bücher reagieren und sich nun emanzipieren. Ich glaube das wohlgemerkt nicht. Ich neige eigentlich eher zur ersten Interpretation.
And we're off to a good start. Alice Schwarzer begins by offering Esther Vilar two possibilities. One, she is stupid. Or two, that this is all just a big joke, it's a satire, and she has yet to reveal it. And Schwarzer is leaning towards the first interpretation, that Vilar is just stupid.
Ich muss sagen, gelinde gesagt, ich fühle mich doch schlicht diffamiert von Ihnen. Ich könnte mir übrigens vorstellen, dass nach dem Gesetzbuch sowas, dass es möglich ist, sowas strafrechtlich zu verfolgen. Eine solche
Sie
Geschichte.
können es versuchen.
Könnte ich mir vorstellen, möchte ich vielleicht nicht unbedingt.
Ja.
And she quickly jumps to say, well, I think you could be sued. Now, this is kind of a thing of Alice Schwarzer. She's pretty litigious. She likes to sue lots of people. And even when she was exposed for tax fraud, the first idea was to sue the person who exposed her fraud in violating her privacy. Now, this privacy thing is going to become an issue as well.
Und ich wäre sehr stolz, wenn er dieses Buch geschrieben hätte, meine ganzen Bücher, aber er interessiert sich überhaupt nicht für
Na, ich
dieses
denke schon,
Thema.
dass Sie es selbst geschrieben haben. Nicht?
Ja,
oder?
tatsächlich.
Ja,
Das freut
also
mich
ich
aber.
kann mir eigentlich nicht vorstellen, dass eine solche Konfusität, also eine solche Verwirrung und solche Widersprüche, wo Sie offensichtlich auch selbst betroffen sind, dass ein Mann das zu Papier bringt.
Ich glaube,
nicht, weil er klüger ist, sondern weil er nicht so betroffen ist, weil er nicht so widersprüchlich ist.
All right, now this is a bit of a gold nugget in the middle of this debate, well, kind of closer to the beginning, where she's so intent on being hostile and attacking Vilar, she ends up saying that only women can be mentally confused enough to write a book like Vilar has done. Now, this is not exactly the kind of view of women that someone like Schwarzer is wanting to present to the world. But, you know, this is why you don't just read stuff that people say about negative things about somebody when you dislike them. You should actually read their own work, because you'll find lots of these little gems in there.
Lass den Inhalt Ihrer Bücher jetzt runterbeten. Aber jetzt möchte ich doch mal wissen, wer steht denn eigentlich dahinter? Wie sind Sie dazu gekommen, sowas zu schreiben? Erzählen Sie mir etwas über Ihr Leben. Ich erzähle Ihnen auch gern was
Ich
über
habe
mich.
Ihnen eben gesagt, dass ich den Unsinn nicht mehr ertragen
Wie leben
konnte,
Sie
den
denn?
Sie
Warum?
und Ihre Clique schreiben. Und deswegen habe ich
Ja, so
Bücher
stark
geschrieben.
also ich und meine Clique, wir haben ja so ein kleines
Ihre Clique
Büchlein
geht über die
in
ganze
irgendeiner
Welt.
Reihe. Naja, also wir sind noch nicht sehr zu Potte gekommen, das kommt erst noch. Aber jetzt sagen Sie mir, was motiviert Sie so? Was motiviert Sie so? Wie leben Sie eigentlich? Haben Sie sich so verhalten wie die Frauen, die Sie beschrieben haben? Sind Sie so eine?
Ich bin
haben Sie
keine
Männer
Ausnahme.
ausgebeutet?
Ich habe immer gesagt, dass ich keine Ausnahme bin.
Ja, haben Sie Ihren Mann ausgebeutet?
Ich antworte in der Öffentlichkeit niemals auf persönliche Fragen.
Ach, Sie meinen, es gibt ein
Ich
Privatleben
frage
und es
Sie
gibt
nicht
eine
über
Öffentlichkeit.
Ihren Mann oder über Ihre Kinder, falls Sie
Können Sie
welche
mich
haben.
fragen?
Und
Sie haben
ich
ja eins,
möchte
haben den
selbst
Vorteil,
auch
sind ja
nicht.
Mutter, ich bin keine.
So there's a couple of things that happen in there. One was she was trying to deny that feminists have any sort of a leader and that they're not really a well-formed clique. And Vilar's pointing out your clique spreads around the world. You guys say stuff and it's heard all over the world. I say something and I've got one little book and it takes a lot of promotion just to have my voice heard. But the main thing in that clip is that Schwarzer goes into an insistent mode that Vilar expose her personal private life, even saying there is no difference between private and public life. And this is going to come and bite Alice in the butt real soon.
This time it's personal.
Ich möchte selbst auch nicht darüber gefragt werden, weil ich der Meinung bin, dass ich zwar über meine Privatverhältnisse schon sprechen könnte,
Ja.
aber ich müsste damit die Erlaubnis eines Partners einholen, der mit mir mal gelebt hat oder mit dem ich jetzt lebe oder meines Kindes, und ich habe kein Recht dazu, das ohne
Ja,
Erlaubnis
ich wollte
zu tun.
mit Ihnen auch nicht in intime Details gehen. Ich möchte nur mal feststellen, dass wenn man heute über Frauen schreibt, ja, dann weiß man auch, dass dieses sogenannte Privatleben ja eigentlich das Terrain ist, wo sich alles abspielt.
You know, that little clip I included because I really admire Esther Vilar's stance on this. I think that a lot of people should keep this in mind, that when you're speaking in public, that you have the right to talk about your life if you want to, but most commonly your discussion of your private life is going to involve other individuals who may not have chosen to be public people. And the respect that she paid to them, I think, is a really important thing for other public figures to keep in mind in terms of using their children's private life in their public presentations to give themselves authority.
Das Wichtigste, das, was uns am elementarsten betrifft, sind die Fragen der Liebe, der Partnerschaft, der Mutterschaft und diese ganzen Geschichten. Am meisten schuften wir in der Küche. Am größten werden wir erniedrigt
Tatsächlich.
im Schlafzimmer. Ja, das tun wir doch, oder?
Ja, und im
Frauen arbeiten
Schlafzimmer
doch
werden
genug.
wir missbraucht wahrscheinlich, das wollten Sie
Und
jetzt sagen.
unter anderem. Übrigens,
Oh Gott.
Männern...
So one of the benefits to saying that the personal is political is so that you can use ad hominem attack. which feminists like to do quite often. You can use ad hominem when you're saying that the personal is political and that all of the political issues being discussed are about the private lives and the people within those homes. Then who you are as a person then becomes part of the political debate. It's really kind of sneaky and underhanded.
Wenn nicht weiblichen Geschlechts wäre. Wenn ein Mann nämlich diese Sachen geschrieben hätte, dann würde man mit den Schultern zucken.
Man würde ihn auslachen, man würde sagen, er hat keinen Erfolg gehabt bei den Frauen und er muss sich jetzt rächen. Deswegen konnte diese Bücher nur eine Frau schreiben.
Ja.
And you can see how that's true with the men who do speak about these issues. All of those things that Vilar identified do happen to them on a regular basis. You know, what would Schwarzer do if a man said these things? Well, she'd destroy him with
liquid hot magma.
Ich glaube, dass Ihre Bücher so unerhört sind, eine solche Beleidigung sind, so infam sind, dass ich heute ernsthaft überlege, ob Frauen sich nicht erkundigen sollten, nicht abchecken sollten, ob man ihnen nicht einen Prozess machen sollte. Denn, und das möchte ich Sie jetzt fragen, wenn Sie in Ihren Büchern das Wort Frau ersetzen würden durch das Wort Jude oder Neger, dann wären Ihre Schriften reif für den Stürmer.
Sie sind nicht so einen wahnsinnigen Unsinn.
Das ist kein Wahnsinn. Sie sind nicht nur Sexistin, Sie sind auch Faschistin.
And here come the lawsuits again. But just to make it even more dramatic, she does something really crazy in Germany. She compares Vilar, a Jewish German citizen, to Nazis, to Hitler. You know, that's just an easy go-to, right? All right, so I've gone through that footage for, I guess, a few reasons, some of them just fun. But I wanted to show you how vehement Alice Schwarzer is about the personal being political. Now, in Germany, she also got heavily involved in the rape trial of a weatherman who was acquitted. And then Schwarzer decided that justice wasn't served, and so she went about serving it herself through her magazine Emma, and was then sued by the weatherman because of, you know, her representation that he was somehow guilty of this crime. He was acquitted. And he won, so good for him. And but Schwarzer got deeply involved in digging through all of his personal detail and making it public. And you can see, as she said to Vilar, that feminism is all about the private lives of women, and that there is no difference in her mind between the personal and the political. And it's not just a catchphrase she's using. She seriously believes this. Until an ex-lover wants to write a book. So to prove that this is not just some made-up story, the author of this book, Tango with Alice, has 100 love letters. And this affair took place between 1972 and 1973. And Schwarzer was actually living with a man at the time in a fairly solid relationship. But she kept this relationship secret from him, spending about half her time with him, I think his name was Bruno, and the other half with her lover. And the interesting thing about the claims, and not a lot has been allowed to be said in public, Schwarzer is in court over whether or not this book can be published, but she is accused here of getting extremely angry and violent whenever sex was denied to her. That she at one point slammed a door and went out and pulled down all of the cast iron frying pans and even got into bizarre anger behaviors like throwing soap at her. Now, I spent 4 days reading these articles that are in German with really badly translated English, and I had a lot of help from a new friend of mine who's German helping me with the translation, so thanks for that. Also, he's the one who linked me up to this story about this book, Tango with Alice. And one of the questions that came up about this book was, why now?
All I'm saying, they're gonna get a...
Right? If this was a relationship from the 70s, why are you only talking about it now?
I'm just...
Schwarzer had published in 2011, published her own biography and talked about the time period involved, but she mysteriously left out any references to this lover. So I guess between being a little bit miffed at that...
Even before you start. That was a preemptive shh.
She was pretty miffed about that, and she is claiming, and I think this is true, that given the statements about private life made by Schwarzer, the same arguments that she put to Vilar, you're saying these things about women's private lives, therefore we deserve to know about you, right? Whereas Vilar never made such claims to Schwarzer, being the one who said this, that you must reveal your private life in order to put some frame of reference on your recommendations for society. I think it's a pretty good idea to find out why Schwarzer was throwing the soap. And now for the rape joke of the week. Well, as a police officer, got myself in a little bit of hot water recently. Accused of, shall we say, inappropriate use of soap, I tried to explain to them it wasn't rape. I just had to reenact the crime.